Morella DeVoe, your host. Our mission with Holistically Speaking is to be the avenue through which the voices of holistic health reach you at the time you need it most. My guest today is one of my favorite people in the world, is my friend, Ellie Beyers. Welcome, Ellie.
Thank you, Morella.
And we are talking about how to be happy in your work. One of the reasons I think, well, you're just fabulous, but one of the reasons why I say you're one of my favorite people in the world is because you bring a lot of lightness to something that feels very heavy and serious.
Yes.
So can you tell us what it is that you do so that our viewers can get a sense for how you help people?
Sure. So I call myself a career and job search counselor.
Okay.
And I think to best understand what I do, I think there's a very important statistic that I always have to mention at the beginning, which is, according to the Department of Labor today, 65% of working adults in this country are not happy in their work. So more than half. And if you ask most people, it is. It is. And if you ask most people how they got into their work, they'll give you a whole host of reasons or stories, but often a theme is that they kind of fell into it. Mm-hmm. So what I do is I help people more intentionally figure out what it is they really want to be doing, and then put into action a plan that will help them get themselves into a happier work situation. Yeah. My clients range in ages from 15 has been the youngest, so I've actually done work with high school students who are starting to think about the college thing, and therefore, where should I go to school, what should I major in? And I currently have a client who's 62.
Oh, wow.
Who's looking at what we affectionately call his Encore Career.
Oh, nice.
You know, sort of the concept of, okay, I got one more in me.
Right.
What's this one more thing?
How great.
But the theme with all of my clients typically is one of two things. Either they're in a job that they're not happy with, but they don't know what else they can do or should do. I also work, it's worth mentioning here, I also work with people who have been displaced from their jobs, either for performance reasons or because the employer has reorged and they find themselves without a job, and their employers pay me to help them to move on to their next gig. Yeah. But even with those people, we invariably, in our first hour, we're talking about what do you really want to be doing.
Right. And you know, what you're mentioning, I hear you say that you work with some people when they're at 15 years old in high school, and I feel like I so needed that. I found myself at 24 hating life, completely lost, and having a feeling like I had no idea who I was.
Yes.
And I'm sure that a lot of people realize I hate, or find themselves in that place of hating what they're doing and having no clue, right?
Right. And you know, 15 can be tricky, because oftentimes that's somebody who's not fully into who they are yet.
Right.
I'm a believer that developmentally we're actually not really fully hitting our stride until our late 20s, early 30s. Gail Shee in her book Passages refers to the 20s as the trying 20s. Trying having double meaning. One is, if you ask most older people, 30s and beyond, would they want to go back and do their 20s?
No.
And they'll go, right? Right? I mean, I'd love to have the pep in my step I had in my 20s, but sort of the angst and what am I doing with my life and where do I want to live and is this the person I want to marry or whatever, that's all gone. But trying also meaning that it's a time to experiment. It's a time to try different things out and to use those experiences to help better understand who you are, what you like, what you don't like.
Yeah.
And I find it heartbreaking when I'm working with somebody who's in their late 20s who's been in the same thing since college. They've been miserable the whole time, but they haven't felt they had the luxury or whatever to maybe do some different things and try different things out. But at age 15, we can at least identify using tools like the Myers-Briggs type indicator that looks at your personality, your hardwiring, that really doesn't change throughout your adult life. We can identify majors or subjects that when the person goes to college, they should absolutely explore and try.
Yeah.
So they can go to college and do some experimenting, but it's got focus to it, particularly given the expense of further ed.
And just having had the experience of sitting with you and having you talk to me and describe my personality type was so revealing. It was just mind-blowing. I've never had that experience with anybody knowing the Myers-Briggs as well as you do. So is this something that you do with everyone who you work with?
Yes. I think it's helpful if I explain a couple of really important distinctions in my work with people. When somebody comes in to see me, 9 times out of 10, they're really unhappy, either because they've lost their job and they're upset about that, or they're still employed, but they really aren't happy with what they're doing. One of my first questions of people is, what type of work are we talking about here? Work comes in 3 types, and actually I should say it's not so much the work itself, but your relationship to the work. And the 3 types are job, career, and calling. So a job is work we do as a means to an end, and there are times in our lives where that's all we want. We're a student or we're parenting young children and we just want this part-time thing to generate some extra cash for the family income.
Right.
Or we're a public teacher, we've got the summers off, it's a chance to make some money. It is, quote, just a job. And there are many a client that's come into my office for whom that's all they want.
Yeah.
A career is work we make a deeper commitment to. It's more than just a job. For better or for worse, our identity's tied up with it. We go to conferences, we take courses, and we say when asked, what do you do? I am a whatever. And there's hopefully some pride and dignity with that. And then a calling, there are actually 2 kinds of callings, and people get mixed up about this and end up making choices that backfire, inner and outer. I'm not talking about belly buttons. So an outer calling, and let me start with inner. An inner calling is something you do for the sheer love of it, just for you. So you're not meant to do it in service to others. Translated, you're not meant to do it for money. Once you get paid to do something, you then have to deliver on other people's expectations. No matter what it is, you are then doing it in service to others. That's what an outer calling is. An outer calling is something you do that has deep meaning to you, feels very purposeful, very aligned with who you are and your best gifts. And as people who are doing their outer calling often express, they'll say, I can't believe I'm getting paid for this.
I know.
Okay?
That statement, what changed my life. Somebody said that to me when I was feeling miserable in my life. He said, I can't believe somebody pays me to do the thing I love. And it was like, blink, oh my God, that's not what I'm doing.
Well, and when you consider how much of our waking hours every week are spent in this thing called work, that's why I'm not afraid to use the word happy. Are people happy in their work or not? And I'll say more about that in a minute. But tying it back to the Myers-Briggs, if I have somebody who comes in and says, I just want a better job, I do a quick, okay, let's talk a little bit about what you need in work to be happy. But then I'm cutting right to resume, LinkedIn, networking, job hunting stuff. I'm not taking a super deep cut, so to speak. But if somebody's talking career or calling, then I am taking a deeper cut.
Dive deeply.
And I think this is a good place to, if I can, talk
please.
About what people need to do if they find themselves not happy. So what do I do? How do I figure this out?
One of the 65% who are not happy.
Exactly. So where do I even start? So the first thing you got to do is what I call inner work. And I have found in the 33 years I've been doing this, that for people to figure out what it is they really want to do, the work starts on the inside first. It does not start by whipping your resume off and shooting it out to stuff that you see
So you were,
online.
yeah,
that you
throwing
think,
spaghetti
quote,
at the wall.
it's going to be the perfect job.
Yeah.
And I have to say, we cannot assess a job online as to whether or not it's perfect or not, at the very least, until we've gone in and met with the people and
Right.
talked with them about it and researched the organization. But I like to start on the inside. And I have found that if people are going to be happy in their work, there are 4 aspects of the work that really have to mesh with the person. One is they got to like what they're doing, right? They wake
Yeah.
up on Monday or whenever they go to work,
Right.
and they're looking forward to what's on their plate.
Yeah.
They like the kinds of problems they're solving or the kinds of interactions they're having with people or information or with tools or
And not like counting the hours till Friday.
Right.
So many people are counting the hours
they
till
are.
Friday.
In fact, sales and marketing people know the best time to do online marketing, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yes, FYI. That's the
Okay.
best time to send your blog or
Right.
newsletter or whatever, because if for the people who are not happy in their work, they're checking out at 3 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
They're like done.
Yeah.
I think inevitably in any paid endeavor, there are going to be aspects of it we're not going to be
Right.
crazy about doing. The cynics say that's why we call it work and we have to get paid for it.
Right.
But
But
I don't want it to exceed 20,
Right.
30%
In general, you
of
should
your
be
time.
liking
You
what
should
you're
be
doing.
liking the majority of what you're
Okay.
doing. So I call that the content of your work. And you're going to see
that's
the
number
letter
1.
C with
Yeah.
everything. All right, that's number 1. Equally important is the where you're doing it, the condition/culture.
Okay.
Boss, coworkers, personality of the place.
Right.
Is it really quiet? Is it really high energy? A lot of interaction going on?
Attire.
Is it flexible? Is it buttoned down corporate? How far do you have to drive to get there? Can you bring your pet llama to work with you if that's
Right.
important to you? Whatever it is.
Right.
And by the way, one of the top conditions I'm hearing from my clients currently is flexibility of time.
Yeah.
I want to be able to step out to my kid's soccer game or step out to run an errand
Yeah.
and not feel like I'm committing some horrible crime.
Right.
Also, very important is boss. Right?
Yeah.
So I can love what I do, but if I'm not digging where I'm doing it or not getting along with my boss and we're really
Yeah.
not doing well, or whatever the condition is, it's not going to be sustainable.
Right.
Okay?
That relationship is super important. It's
Super.
even predictive of longevity in a job if you like
It
your
is.
boss.
And if they like you, yes. Like, trust, and respect.
Right.
Those are the 3 legs of that relationship stool. Like,
Right.
trust, and respect. And if you've lost any one of those, you got to ask yourself, is there a way I can rebuild that?
Right.
Likewise, your boss with you. And if not, then it's probably not a salvageable relationship. Third C, ruthless rule of reality for most of us, is compensation.
Yeah.
How much we're getting paid.
Right.
And it's not just for bills, it's for feelings of recognition, valuing. And then the 4th category I call congruence. And I have to confess, it's a little bit of my lazy category for anything that doesn't fit the other 3. You know, it's kind of obtuse. But that's actually where the Myers-Briggs comes in. It's about how the work fits who you are,
Right.
your personality. I mentioned the 20s is the trying 20s, 30s, 40s, particularly and up. We want to be in work where we feel we are our authentic selves. I don't have to put a personality on to go do my work.
Right. Yeah.
So congruence is about self, it's about values, sense of purpose, sense of meaning. So my first homework to anybody who's unhappy is make your list. What do you really want to be doing? In what kind of environment? What kind of paycheck and benefits and time off? That's a biggie for people too.
Yeah.
And fitting how with who you are in your nature, the kind of person that you are. A great book for that, can I hold this?
Yeah.
Is a book called Do What You Are
Yeah.
by Tiger and Tiger. You can actually go through the first part of the book. It helps you understand what your type is, your personality type.
Oh, wow.
And then there's a chapter on each of the 16 types that includes the list of careers people might want to consider
Yeah.
to help them begin to think about other things
Yeah,
they might
and that
want to do.
exercise is so eye-opening. I remember you giving me something like that. I don't know if it's from this book or some other book. And I remember looking at the list and thinking, oh, that's fun. Oh, that would be so great. Oh, I've done that and that and that. It was really interesting.
Which your type, to be frank,
Yeah.
without revealing it,
No.
would be. Now,
Yeah.
there are other types, when they look at the list, they immediately go into, well, I can't do that. I've never done that before. Well, I don't know whether I'd like doing that. I've never done it before.
Oh, interesting.
Or I don't have the right education or training, or I'm not skilled to do that. My response, semi-tongue-in-cheek, is nobody pops out of the womb qualified to do much of anything.
That's a great
except some basic stuff.
Yeah.
So is it too late? Is it ever too late? In my opinion, absolutely
Right.
not. I have a 60-year-old right now who's figuring out the Encore Career. What do they want to do in that last
love
chapter
that.
of their lives? And, you know, it's never too late.
Yeah.
It's never too late. And to figure out whether or not your current work is salvageable, make your list.
Mm-hmm.
And if what you're doing ain't doing it for you, then you've probably got to make a change. If you really love the company or the organization, so the conditions are good,
Yeah.
then maybe it's about exploring other jobs within your organization. If you're liking what you're doing, but you're not liking where you're doing it,
Yeah.
then it's probably time to dust off the resume,
Right.
get on board with LinkedIn, which is a gotta have in job
Yeah.
hunting now. Get your network built up, understand that half the jobs open on a given day never get posted online, so you really do have
Yeah.
to do the networking
A lot
thing.
of people underestimate that.
Yes, they
all
do.
they do is send resumes to job postings, and they're not doing the legwork.
Right, and LinkedIn is a great tool for that.
Yeah.
Because on LinkedIn, if you go to your profile page in the search bar, you can type in the name of a company. LinkedIn will tell you of the people you're currently linked with, who's linked to people inside that company.
Oh, wow.
Huge resource. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. And once you reach 300 plus connections, which sounds like a lot, but if you actually tap into alumni of places you
Right.
went to school, and you don't worry about who you link with in terms of profession, you just care that they are people you like, trust, and respect,
Right.
you could have contacts that could get you inside places of great interest.
That's a function I wasn't even aware of, that you could see the company and then see who in your network is connected. And it does tell you like how many degrees, because it tells you like second or third or whatever.
Exactly. But it tells you who are those shared contacts, so you can contact your first degree person and say, I see you're connected to the director of marketing at Garrett Green Mountain. Would
Right.
you be willing to introduce us?
Yeah.
So much, so efficient. So I can like what I do, but if I'm not digging where I'm doing it, that does suggest more of a change.
Right.
I say to people, if you're not happy with anything in life, but with work in particular, you have three choices.
Yeah.
One is change the way you're thinking about it. The second is change something about it itself. Change what you're doing or where you're doing it without having to leave the place, so to speak, or go do something else.
Right.
About half my clients who come through my doors end up staying in what they're doing, but with a different headset about it.
Interesting.
For starters, they're choosing it after considering a whole lot of other things. And often when we're unhappy in our work, part of the problem is we feel the effect of it. We're not choosing it. I'm here by
You
default.
feel victimized.
You do. And that creates a kind of headset that doesn't bring joy,
Right.
right? We feel stuck.
It must be massively transformative to decide, you know, I'm staying with this job, and they must show up as different people. I'm
They
sure.
do. And often there are some changes they make, either in their relationships with people or in the content of their work, or this happens often. I have the client who's actually got a job offer and they go to tell their boss that they're leaving, and the boss says, what do I need to do to keep you?
Oh, wow.
And so then they end up negotiating a better compensation if that's what the issue is.
Yeah.
People get very frightened when they think about changing their work because it's our livelihood.
Right.
Right? So it does cut to our very survival.
Yeah.
And we get scared, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to rock the boat around my livelihood.
Yeah.
And all I can say to people is if you take baby steps, this isn't about doing something stupid. This is about rethinking what you're doing, the direction you're going in, and figuring out what else you might do that's going to make you happier and taking some action around that.
And the other thing that I remember stuck with me when, as I was taking on my career exploration in my 20s, was the idea that if I find the thing that I really love, I'm probably going to be so much better at it.
Exactly.
And easier to be good at it, you know?
Well, and the other thing is, I don't know about you, but anytime I get around anybody who's loving what they're doing, I don't care what it is, it makes me want to cry.
Right.
Khalil Gibran said, work is love made visible. And what I love about that is whatever we do, it's an opportunity to be of service to people and do it with a smile on our face. But also, if we love what we do, that love is going to come through.
Right.
And people love to be around people who are loving what they're doing.
It's contagious. It's inspiring.
And it's who people, if I'm a hiring manager, I'm not only checking out, can you do the work? And are you and I going to get along? I'm also checking out, are you going to be on fire about it?
Right.
And that's often where people fall short in the interview process. They demonstrate their competency. They seem like decent people to work with, but their heart isn't in it.
Right.
And interviewers can tell.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So we can get very practical with this.
So I have two questions that popped to mind as we were having this conversation. One is, where do people get stuck? And I'm, wondering, like, do you see people getting stuck and not starting this process for a series of reasons, or do they get stuck in the process? Where do people get most stuck?
Between their ears. They get stuck with their thinking. Mm-hmm. There's a current book out. I have not read it, but I love the title, and it's called "Don't Believe Half of What You Think."
I love that.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
And so they're sitting there going, I can't change. I don't have the right skills. I don't have a degree. I'm too old. I'm too young.
I put too much time into this.
I put too much time into this. I have a client right now who is scared to death with what her mother, and this is a 40-year-old client, scared to death of what her mother is going to say when she tells her she's left her job. She hasn't even told her mother yet. Okay. So we also have the people in our lives who say things to us like, but you have a good job. That one drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Drives me nuts. From the outsider looking in, it might look like a good job, but what constitutes whether a job is good for you is you. It's very personal. Right. So there's a lot of internal fears and doubts and inner dialogue that stops us, that keeps us from taking action. Now, I remember years ago meeting a woman who I would describe as the most morose, down, negative, skeptical person who was very successful. Mm-hmm. And turned out, I saw her across the room at a conference, and it turned out she was the keynote speaker, which I found astounding.
Wow.
And she got up and she said to us, I am the most negative person you will ever meet. And I'm sitting in my chair going, yeah, no kidding. I could spot it across the room. But I'm very successful. And she said, I'm successful, and I've written several books that have been published because the whole time I'm working on the book, and my inner voice critic is going, nobody's going to want this. Nobody's going to read it. It's not going to be useful to people. No one's going to pay for it. I keep writing. So it can also be argued that it's about the action.
Right.
So even if you have those kinds of thoughts, yes, work on changing them or doubting them or questioning them. But it doesn't mean you can't also be taking steps. And taking action.
I like the little simple exercise of saying to yourself or to that voice, saying thank you for sharing, and keep going.
And keep going.
Right. So I want to be sure to show our viewers how to contact you and find all of the wonderful resources and services that you have to offer before we run out of time.
Okay.
So your website is newdirectionsstudio.com, and so you're essentially helping people who are starting out in their career, who are transitioning, who are just generally unhappy and lost and maybe wanting to fall in love with their job. Who else might be watching?
I also work with people who are going through divorces, and I get hired in divorce cases to do an assessment of the spouse. It's usually the mother and wife, to determine short-term employability, but also put together a longer-term employability plan requiring further education and training that we can present to the judge for the purpose of determining support payments and for how long.
Right.
So I do vocational assessments of divorce cases, and I work with people who've lost their jobs and are actively hunting. Whether they pay for the service or their employer pays for the service. 90%, 95% of my work is one-on-one, so I do individual work either per hour or by program. I also have 2 workbooks that people can purchase for
Which are phenomenal.
$99.99.
Yeah.
One is called Identifying Work That You'll Love. It's the workbook that is self-directed in terms of identifying what else somebody can do professionally that they're going to be happy doing. And then I have the Career Transition Workbook available, and that's job hunting.
Yeah.
Don't let the word career trip you up. If your career, if your calling or job material, the material's appropriate.
Yeah. No, I remember seeing your materials and just being fascinated by how helpful and how thorough they are.
They're also really practical.
Yeah.
You know, there are certain questions people need to ask themselves that they don't know to ask, and then they don't know how to answer them. I give you the tools to help you answer those questions.
I guess the final thing that I want to share with viewers about you is that having shared office space with you, and so Ellie's office was on the other side of my wall, and I, might have been busy typing or whatever, were the amount of laughs that I would hear coming from your office. And so it was just always so refreshing to know that people were coming to you with really serious issues about their livelihood, their career, their job satisfaction, and they always seemed so uplifted in their conversations with you.
We do it all. I mean, we also cry, we rage. People have feelings that they have to work through. Some people do none of the above. They come in, we get down to business, that's what it is. But I think the first step towards change is hope.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so there's hope.
There's absolutely hope. My clients move on to bigger, better things without fail.
Right.
It might take 6 months, it might take a year, it might take 10 years.
Yeah.
Usually it's no more than about 2 years. The average amount of time it takes people to do a complete change of direction is 2 to 3 years. And sometimes my clients make more immediate changes to just get out of a bad situation or get themselves reemployed while we're figuring out the bigger question. But I'm all about being happy. I'm all about joy. So we got to have that in our process together too.
Yeah. So there's hope and there's the possibility for laughter in the process.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you found it as fun and engaging as I always find my time with Ellie. It was a pleasure bringing this to you, and join me next week. We're going to be talking about holistic education and the impact on the community. Take care.